My name is Joanna Hood, and I'm a software engineer. I listen to Progress Texas every day, and I love it. It's just so refreshing. I love Progress Texas because it's not just news, but there's an editorial attached to it that I really appreciate, and because it agrees so closely with how I feel, it makes me feel like less of a blue dot in a big red bubble.
It's Friday, July 10th, 2026, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch Rapid Response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. Progress Texas amplifies progressive values, leaders, and actions through our no paywall podcasts and digital media. We reach millions of Texans monthly, and that's made possible by folks like you who invest in independent progressive media by Texans for Texans. Huge thanks to Marley McKenzie, Susan Rodriguez, and Kristen Hartwell for their ongoing sustaining support. We appreciate it. Further details on the ICE killing in Houston earlier this week of dad and husband Lorenzo Salgado Araujo have only led to further heartbreak and outrage, alongside a significant escalation of calls for justice, now extending far beyond Texas. Christian Terry at KPRC TV in Houston says that last night the Harris County Medical Examiner officially ruled the death of Salgado Araujo a homicide, determining that the 52-year-old construction business owner died from a penetrating gunshot wound to his torso. Not a surprise that the medical examiner's findings immediately challenged the initial narrative provided by ICE, which claimed that one of their agents opened fire on Salgado Araujo in self-defense after he rammed a law enforcement vehicle during a targeted traffic stop. However, Juliana Bragg at CNN says 3 eyewitnesses detained during the operation, including Salgado Araujo's brother and 2 of his co-workers, have strongly contradicted this account, stating via attorneys that unmarked ICE vehicles pursued and then rammed their van first, that the agent opened fire almost immediately upon jumping out of his unmarked vehicle, and that at no point in the incident were the agent's lives remotely in danger. Adding to the incompetence at play here, DHS has themselves confirmed that Lorenzo Salgado Araujo was not even the intended target of this ICE operation. The agents were looking for 2 other individuals from Guatemala. Compounding the lack of immediate transparency, the ICE agents involved in the fatal shooting turns out were not wearing body-worn cameras. Incredibly, in a statement, the Department of Homeland Security specifically blames Democrats and past government shutdowns for delaying the funding, purchasing, and distribution of body camera equipment to local ICE field offices. A patently absurd claim, considering the billions of our tax dollars that have been allocated to immigration enforcement by the Trump administration, and tossing any chance of keeping partisan politics out of the matter here out the window. Alex Woodward at The Independent says the League of United Latin American Citizens, or LULAC, has sounded the alarm that those witnesses still in federal custody are now under heavy ICE pressure to sign paperwork for their own voluntary removal from the country, a transparent and now routine play to eliminate key witnesses and to shield ICE and DHS from accountability. A degree of internal strife has developed in regard to the Salgado Araujo killing in Houston, as well as the locals express frustration at the lack of oversight that the city's elected leaders appear to have over federal operations. Houston city officials do in fact lack jurisdiction to investigate federal law enforcement actions directly, and so local municipalities remain structurally limited in protecting residents from federal overreach. Still, local leaders in Houston are under pressure to do whatever they can, and Harris County District Attorney Sean Tier is launching independent investigatory efforts to circumvent federal stonewalling via a parallel review. Tier has deployed his own investigators to the scene to collect surveillance footage and has publicly called for community witnesses to share any relevant photos or videos they might have. Tier is looking to manage expectations here. He's expressed deep frustration over the federal government retaining exclusive control over critical evidence, noting that in the Salgado Araujo matter, his office faces barriers that are unprecedented in standard officer-involved shootings. Tier emphasizes that if a state crime like murder, manslaughter, or tampering with evidence occurred, the individuals responsible won't be able to hide behind their badges. Tier further says he's opened consultations with prosecutors in Minnesota who have specific experience here. They previously sued the federal government to secure evidence after the similar ICE shootings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. Meanwhile, state officials in Texas remain disengaged. You'll recall that last year, the Department of Homeland Security brought in the Texas Rangers to investigate the fatal ICE shooting of Ruben Ray Martinez on South Padre Island. But Benjamin Werman at the Houston Chronicle says thus far, federal authorities have refused to request a state probe in Texas, perhaps seeking to maintain exclusive control of the evidence. State Senator Carol Alvarado and 12 other Democratic lawmakers have demanded the Texas DPS launch a parallel investigation of the Salgado Araujo shooting, though expectations of transparency at the state level under Governor Greg Abbott, who's unlikely to allow any development that might annoy Donald Trump, are not much more encouraging than the faith many of us have lately of the feds. Other Texas Democratic lawmakers and an array of civil rights groups across the state are also demanding independent investigations. Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia has invoked the United Nations Council on Human Rights as a potential outside authority should Trump's federal agencies refuse to cooperate. It's beyond time, in fact, for a global reckoning on where Donald Trump's xenophobic lunacy has led us. While all of this is happening, Lorenzo Salgado Araujo's family and community are focused on how they plan to remember and honor Lorenzo, and the rest of us should pay heed. His son, Ronaldo Salgado, says he refuses to let his father be reduced to a mere headline about immigration enforcement. Lorenzo was a loving dad, a devoted husband, and an impactful contributor to his community who spent 3 decades building a life in the United States. He was a private, hardworking business owner who ran a successful construction company over many years, working on hundreds of homes across the Houston area, all of which bear his expert handiwork today. He was also on the verge of obtaining his legal status, having meticulously attended every appointment, filed every document, and prepared for potential immigration encounters by consulting with attorneys. Lorenzo leaves behind a personal example of fairness, hard work, and profound dedication to his family and neighbors, several of whom have shared sweet memories of evenings on his porch, relaxing and enjoying music. Lorenzo had been with his wife since they were teens. Together they raised 3 sons and built a beautiful home for them, instilling in their boys a deep respect for education that led those young men to successful careers in teaching and engineering. This is a Texas family just like yours who worked hard for the American dream and with a single careless and over-aggressive law enforcement action have now seen that dream shattered. There must be accountability and there must be change. If you're listening in Austin, the Texas AFL-CIO has announced a community vigil for Lorenzo Salgado Araujo tomorrow, Saturday, June 11th, at the Wildflower Church on East Oldtorp. It will start at 6 p.m. See the link in the show notes for information, which also includes a link to the GoFundMe effort underway to defray funeral costs and support the family. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Friday, July 10th, 2026. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. When lives in Texas are well funded by the far right, your support for fact-based reporting is needed and appreciated. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks for listening. Have a good day and a good weekend. We'll see you again here on Monday morning.